I think it's one of those days where people might look at the Middle East and say, what's happening here? Scratch their heads. Israel releasing a terrorist committed a terrible atrocity to Hezbollah, and in exchange for 2 dead bodies. What's going on? Well, I suggest 3 things are going on. The first, this is closing a circle on the Lebanon War of 2006, fought 2 years ago to this day. Hezbollah made the raid into Israel, attacked a convoy, took these 2 soldiers or bodies, and recognized afterwards that this was something they wouldn't have done had they anticipated the Israeli response. The Israeli response, ostensibly to release the 2 young men, Udi Goldwasser and Eldad Regev, didn't achieve that aim, but it did in many ways lead to an own goal, taking out Lebanese infrastructure, leading to anger in Lebanon and in the region, and causing a terrible problem for the Israeli government, in many ways a disproportional response. And the UN and international community and American response, waiting too long before they tried diplomacy, eventually getting a UN resolution, but after 34 days when they could have achieved that from the beginning in day 1. So lessons to be learnt, but this closes a circle on what happened 2 years ago. The second thing I think this gives us is a window onto Israel and Israeli society. It's a small country. The families of the 2 boys, Goldwasser and Regev families, are now familiar to every Israeli. Israel has a conscript army, national service. And some people may see this as a weakness, but I think many in Israel feel that it's a strength, that Israel is willing to make such deals in order to get young people that it sends out into the field back again. Israel's made deals like this before and is likely to do so in the future. And I think it gives people a perhaps unexpected sense of some of the solidarity that still exists inside Israel, which is why they agreed to this deal. I think it thirdly and finally gives us a window onto Lebanon. People understandably, and not just in Israel, will probably be shocked and perhaps appalled at the response in Lebanon of the great joy and the turning of this Samir Kuntar, who carried out these murders in 1979, into a national hero. First of all, some of this is no doubt coerced public response. Some of this is genuine Lebanese anger at what happened 2 years ago, and the venting of that in any way that could be a finger in the eye against Israel. But I think one also has to understand that this is a society that, as in many other societies, can turn unlikely and unpleasant people into national symbols. So I wouldn't go too far in blaming Lebanon for what we're seeing today, for the pictures. And finally, it shows us that in Lebanon, Hezbollah is a force that has to be reckoned with. And there is now a new government in Lebanon that does include Hezbollah. That's perhaps not an ideal situation, but it's a reality. And I think the only way you're going to have stability in Lebanon is getting this cooperation. Now, Israel is going to move on, the region is going to move on, and I'd suggest the thing to look out for next will be the negotiations over the release of the Israeli, hopefully and apparently still alive, being held in Gaza, Gilad Shalit. That's going to be a tough negotiation, but I think one can expect to see movement on that.